Asshole. Welcome to An Ordinary Australian, a personal account on social drinking and alcoholism, a limited radio program produced by Eastside FM. My name is Laurent Auclair.
And my name is Mark Bennett.
And over the course of our 4 episodes, we will talk about a problem that affects many a life and that too many people consider in Australia, but in many other countries in the world, like a mere social habit. And it can be, of course, but it can also turn into something more challenging, as Mark's personal experience will tell us. We are talking about our relationship to alcohol, whether in a social environment or in the privacy of our homes. If you are having issues with alcohol, or if you are concerned about someone else's alcohol use, you can contact the National Alcohol and Other Drug Hotline on 1-800-250-015. That's 1-800-250-015. And if you need emotional support, you can contact Lifeline 24 hours a day on 13 11 14 or through their website lifeline.org.au. And before we start, Mark, I want to make sure that we are not misleading our listeners. Our conversation is not a professional helpline. None of us is a psychologist or a medical professional. We are just ordinary Australians, but we want to start a conversation, whether at home, at work, or wherever it can happen. And Mark, so I know you have a personal experience with alcohol use and maybe abuse. So I've got a question for you first is, why did you want to talk about, and since when have you change your ways? I don't want to make it a preachy way, but how did it happen in your life that you decided to change and you decided to talk about it?
Okay. All right. So because I've had such a tumultuous journey with alcohol during my life, and I became sober nearly 4 years ago, I wanted to tell my story and perhaps help some other people out. They might be able to hear it and say, okay, the same things are happening to me. Mm-hmm. Maybe I need to stop. If I can help just one person, that would be enough. So after 32 years of drinking, I'm now into 4 years of sobriety, and I've never felt better about myself.
Okay. I would just want to give our listeners a bit of a glimpse of what is your life now. So you've been sober 4 years. What has mainly changed for you? Not just in your relationship to alcohol,
mm-hmm.
Because I know you're not drinking at all anymore.
No, not at all.
But in terms of your life as a whole.
I guess the first thing that is measurable is the money. Like the money I've been able to save has been monumental, because obviously I didn't know how much I was spending on alcohol every fortnight or every month or whatever before that. But now you can see it. Like it's unbelievable the amount of money that was spent. There's also clarity around everything you do. When you're drunk, or when you're drinking, or under the throes of alcoholism, you make decisions that you think they're good at the time, mm-hmm. But they're not, because you don't have the ability to think clearly. And since I've stopped drinking, there's you're never second guessing yourself, and you can always go ahead and say, all right, this is what I want to do, and you don't have to think twice about it, because everything's clearer in your head.
Mm. And when you mentioned the money, actually it's and because we've known each other for a few years, and so I've known you in on both sides of your consumption of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I think the money side is not just the alcohol that you were consuming. It's all the sides of it, whether it's buying everyone drinks all the time to even to people you've never met in your life.
the
generosity.
friends that you make on one night and
Yes.
Disappear as soon as the money runs out. Yeah, there's always so much spending going on. Also, I don't know what it is about shouting rounds or shouting drinks in Australia, but it makes you feel better about yourself or more powerful or something like that. There's also the gambling, the spending of money on gambling, because if you're a gambler to start with, I mean, you're going to lose money. But if you're a drinker as well, and you start to get drunk, then you don't care about one, how much you're drinking, and two, how much you're gambling. And the money just disappears.
Yeah. And in terms of gambling, did your habit of gambling change before and after you drank?
Yes, for sure. Like before you start drinking, you don't really you're not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about gambling, or all you're thinking about is drinking and continuing to drink. And then, of course, after you've had a few, then, there's a poker machine, or there's the tab, or there's, whatever's happening. Yes, and there are lots of distractions.
Yeah.
You can be.
And since you have been sober, have you gambled as much, or do you control that, or is not even you put a bet once in a while, like probably every Australian, and without gambling being a problem about it?
I do like a bit of a bet on the horses, but it's nothing compared to what I was doing before. And poker machines was probably the worst thing that I could have ever done. I remember one night I put $3,000 through one poker machine and didn't even think about it or bat an eyelid or anything like that. And now I won't go near them now. I can't stand them. I won't go near them.
Okay. And can I go into basically a bit of the story that you had with alcohol? When did you just start drinking, like in a social way, and when do you think it moved into more of a problem for you, even maybe before you realized it?
Okay, so as a teenager, in Australia in the 80s, when you're 15 or 16 or somewhere around those ages, you're not supposed to be drinking because you're not of legal age, but everyone does. And my friends started drinking. I started drinking with them. As to when it got out of hand, I can't exactly pinpoint the moment, the year, or anything like that. Yeah. But I know by the time I was in my early 20s that it was not a healthy relationship that I had with alcohol.
Okay. And do you think that as a teenager, when you started drinking, was it, as we all say all the time, was it peer pressure? Did you feel like you wanted to drink to become a man, or did you feel any pressure in that sense?
I think everyone has a different outlook on that when they take their first drink, whenever that may be. Growing up in a country town and being gay as well, it's very difficult to fit in, or it was very, very difficult to fit in at that time. And you would do anything, well, virtually anything you could to cement your relationships with your friends at school and whatever. So it's not like you think you've got a chance to say no or to stop or anything like that. You just think, I've got to do what everyone else is doing, and I'll fit in, and everything will go along smoothly.
And so you mentioned you're gay, but were you openly gay at that time when you were a teenager, or
no.
was it impossible? Like, obviously not impossible because some people do it, but in terms of the social pressure this time that
yes, I felt it was impossible at the time. So I guess there were a lot of variables that lead to the abuse of alcohol, being gay, being bullied for being gay when you don't even know you're gay yourself, being bullied for other reasons. But the funny thing is, I look back on that time at school now, in high school, and like the importance of it has diminished somewhat, but you don't realise that at the time. You just think, I've got to fit in everywhere. I've got to do what everyone else is doing. I don't want to stand apart from everyone else.
And so you were talking before about that culture of shouting everyone at the bar, and that everyone needs to shout everyone else when you're in a group. And I think that is part of an aspect that I would like to go back to in terms of that cultural acceptance or that feel that it is part of, especially the Australian culture, to drink socially and sometimes to drink quite heavily socially. How did you feel about that as a teenager when you were starting drinking for example, in your family? Did you feel like there was I wouldn't say support of it, but no one really told you, oh, be careful how much you drink? Or
oh no, someone did for sure. My mother did, because she was
mothers always do that. They're good for that.
Yeah, she was. She wasn't a drinker at all. I mean, she would have a drink every 3 years or something like that, and that was it. She would have one and stop. My father, on the other hand, was very different. He would drink, and I think he has drank every day of his life. Never missed a day's work, however. So he's what we call a high functioning alcoholic. And I guess the influence that the father figure has on you is very strong without you even knowing it at the time. Like to be seen as one of the boys, a big drinker, all that sort of thing, to be admired, I guess. There is admiration about people drinking in Australia. So yes, it was very much, not that he ever encouraged me to drink or to drink excessively, but he never discouraged it, whereas my mother, never stopped discouraging it.
And you always saw that as a kid. You always saw your father drink at parties or at barbecues or without even that was part of him. So probably as a role model, even though he was not promoting it, obviously that was part of what
learned
a man
experience.
was doing.
Yes, like I remember things like Friday nights or something. We'd have to go down to the club or the pub or whatever and wait for him and things like that, which I thought nothing of at the time. It was only later that I thought about the ramifications of that on the relationship and things like that. So it's very difficult to grow up in a family where the conflicting stories are coming from each parent. Very difficult.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back to talk more about those times in your life where alcohol became a habit.
Bottle of wine, fruit of the vine, when you gonna let me get sober? Let me alone, let me go home, let me go back and start over. Rambling around this dirty old town, singing for nickels and dimes. Time's getting tough, I ain't got enough to buy a little bottle of wine. Bottle of wine, fruit of the vine, when you gonna let me get sober? Let me alone, let me go home, let me go back and start over. Little hotel older than hell, dark as the coal in a mine. Blankets are thin, I lay there and grin 'cause I got a little bottle of wine. Bottle of wine, fruit of the vine. When you gonna let me get sober? Let me alone, let me go home. Let me go back and start over. Pain in my head and bugs in my bed. Pants are so old that they shine. Out on the street, tell the people I meet, won't you buy me a bottle of wine? Bottle of wine, fruit of the vine. When you gonna let me get sober? Let me alone, let me go home. Let me go back and start over. Well, a preacher will preach, a teacher will teach, a miner will dig in a mine. I ride the rods, trusting in God, hugging my bottle of wine. Bottle of wine, fruit of the vine. When you gonna let me get sober? Let me alone, let me go home. Let me go back and start over.
And you're listening to An Ordinary Australian, our conversation with Mark Bennett about our relationship with alcohol on a social level. And before we move on, I just want to point out a few facts, actually, because in Australia we have a bit of records, and the government is actually doing a few things to try to understand and fight alcoholism in Australia. But in 2017, we had 1,366 alcohol-induced death, and alcohol is the sixth highest risk factor of disease in Australia, which is quite terrifying sometimes. And it's also estimated that around 20% of Australian over 18 drink at risky or high risk levels. That's numbers that I got from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. And I think it's also important this year, because we lived through the COVID-19 lockdown and pandemic. And actually, when the first lockdown was done in Australia in March, basically the consumption or the increase in alcohol sales increased 20% on that first week, which means that basically we try to find comfort or solace sometimes in that alcohol consumption. And of course it is always something to keep in check. It's not, we are not here to deter anyone from having their social drinks. I'm still drinking on a regular basis, so I'm
I thought you were going to say on a rare occasion.
No, on but and weirdly enough, I must say, on a personal level, since you became sober and we started to talk about doing that show and sharing this story with all our listeners, I actually reduced my consumption of alcohol, because I realized that at some point I was actually drinking every day without even thinking twice about it, whether I felt like it or not. It became like one of those normal gestures when you come back from work and you just pour a drink
To relax and unwind, or
even without thinking about it. So you already helped someone. That's me. So that's really good. So now to get back to kind of where it all started,
mm-hmm.
and in your teenage years. So you were in Port Macquarie,
mm-hmm. Yes.
and for people like who might not where is it. Hopefully everyone knows that it's up the coast in Sydney. But as a town, is it a big town? Is it a city? Is it how did you feel about it in the 80s when you were a teenager there?
Well, it was obviously a lot smaller than it is now. I think the population was roughly 60,000 people in the 80s. It was it was like a large country town. And everyone knew everyone and all that sort of thing. So you couldn't get away with much without being found out and everyone else knowing about it. It was that type of place. So if you're feeling, different to everyone else, or that you've got something to hide, it can be quite traumatic to be living through that in that type of place. I can imagine people growing up in somewhere like Sydney, where there's, I don't know what the population was at the time, but a couple of million people. It would be quite a lot easier to hide or to, go places that you shouldn't perhaps be going, and not worry about getting found out about it.
Mm. And in terms of that social impact of starting to drink and then drinking more and more without even realizing, how do you think you slipped into that habit a bit more? Was it just like pouring yourself a drink when you go back home just for no reason, or was it more socially meeting people outside?
Well, alcoholism comes in all shapes and forms.
Yes.
So I was starting at 16, and then you get to 18 and it's legal, so you don't have to worry about ID or anything like that. You can just go and do what you want. But I was a binge drinker, so I wouldn't drink every day of the week. But when Friday came around, then it was all hell would break loose, so to speak. So, and I would drink until either there's no money left, or I get kicked out, or it's closing time, or any number of reasons, except because I wanted to stop. So, going into adulthood, it's an accepted thing. It's an accepted thing. You can't. Well, maybe you can, but it feels like you can't go to any social situation, a barbecue, a pub, a club, even dinner with people. It's all surrounded by alcohol.
Mm. And at any point, did you think, oh, I should stop and I should tell people I'm sorry, I don't want to drink tonight, or it didn't even, it was so
in the younger years?
Yeah, in the younger years. No, not now that you're sober, of course.
No, it never occurred to me as a younger person. I don't know if that's because you think you're bulletproof and I can drink like everyone else, or you just don't think about it at the time. I guess it's like everything when you're young. Hindsight is a fantastic thing to have, but of course you can't have it during the time when something's happening. So I'm trying to remember back to certain things that happened, and I can't remember any specifics, but I can remember, like, you'd go out with your friends every Friday and Saturday night, and you'd go to the pub and you'd drink, and you drink until 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Yeah,
and I think something that is also important maybe to point out is because I think one of the stigmas that we usually push on people we think are suffering from alcoholism is they come from a difficult background. They might have had problems in their lives, and I think this is not really your case. You were not the troubled child. You were not from a very dysfunctional family that would have pushed you into that type of extra consumption of alcohol.
No, I had a perfect upbringing. It was we weren't rich, but we weren't poor at the same time. So it's not like came from a low income household or something like that, and alcoholism is a result of it. It's nothing like that. So, I mean, alcoholism can strike anyone. You don't have to be like at the top of the socio-economic tree or anything like that, or at the bottom. It doesn't matter.
And what would you say to, especially now with your experience with being sober and having, had that fight to get out of it? Because we'll talk about it in one of our future episodes. But I'm pretty sure it's not that easy, and there's a lot of things you need to deal with at the same time. But what would you say to any of our listeners who might want to check if they are on the if there is
the downhill slide,
if there is a right side of drinking or the wrong side of drinking, what would be for you some signs based on your personal experience? Once again, we're not specialists, but how you feel or see people around you.
Okay, well, when I see friends or even people I don't know, and you see certain things that they do, certain characteristics that they display, something happens and you go, oh, okay, this person might need some help.
And do you have specifics on that? On what are those hints that you have, or even for people to if they want to check how much they drink a day, or those standard drinks that we all talk about.
Well, the thing is, I think everyone already knows how much they drink and how much they should be drinking, but if it doesn't affect them in a negative or what they think is a negative way, they're not going to stop it. You're not going to change your behaviour until something happens that makes you start to think about it. So I drank for 32 years, and I was going to drink whenever I wanted. I was going to go home when I wanted, even when friends would say it's time to go home. I would say, no, I'm not going home. I would stay until the end. And that's because with me, with alcoholism, I don't have an off switch. Like I couldn't understand how people could go out for one wine or go out for one beer and then go home. Mm-hmm. I could never do that. Once I'd have one, I'd have to just keep going.
Well, thank you so much for sharing such personal part of your story, Mark. And in our next episode, we'll delve into the impact of alcohol on personal relationship. And so once again, if you are having issues with alcohol, or if you are concerned about someone else's alcohol use, you can contact the National Alcohol and Other Drug Hotline on 1-800-250-015. And if you need emotional support, you can contact Lifeline 24 hours a day on 13 11 14 or through their website lifeline.org.au. You've been listening to An Ordinary Australian, a limited radio program created by Laurent Auclair and Mark Bennett and produced by Eastside FM. Until next time.